Welcome to News Television for All. I'm your host, Gentry McShane, and this is episode 4.
It's the material that traps the particulates.
As if Guns N' Roses wasn't already full of bad associations, that's President Trump visiting a factory where they're making masks and playing Guns N' Roses Live and Let Die. When asked about the decision not to wear a mask, he responded, "I didn't need it," and asked the head of Honeywell, "Should I wear a mask?" And he said, "Well, you don't need one in this territory. And as you know, we were far away from the people making masks." He, of course, said all of this very loudly in the face of a reporter while not wearing a mask. It is confirmed that Vice President Mike Pence has been exposed to COVID-19 after a White House aide tested positive for it last Friday. Here at NTFA, our thoughts and prayers are with Mr. Pence and highly recommend the controversial yet extremely effective treatment for COVID, shock therapy. A 26-minute video documentary called Plandemic has been shared far and wide this past week. Despite the user-generated streaming services like YouTube and Vimeo's best efforts to remove every single upload of it, the film focuses on world-renowned scientist Judy Mikovits that nobody seems to be familiar with except anti-vaccine activists. In the film, she claims to be not an anti-vaccine activist, yet weaves a very interesting tale of coronavirus being part of an elaborate plan to enforce a globally mandated vaccine. Her claims are being discredited by scientists globally who are being forced to be as concerned about the spread of fake information as they are about a global pandemic which has now killed over 285,000 people worldwide. I haven't seen a Judy get things this twisted since my friend Kyle accused me of telling his ex all the parties he would be at in an effort to parent trap them back together. I actually was. Father and son Gregory McMichael and Travis McMichael have been arrested and charged with the murder and aggravated assault of 25-year-old unarmed Ahmaud Arbrey, who was killed by the two while running through a Georgia neighborhood last February. As for their reasonings behind the murder, they have claimed that Arbrey matched the description of a burglary suspect that they had seen on a surveillance video sometime before. After the investigation on the claim of the two white supremacists, it turns out that it really doesn't fucking matter. Black lives do. You can donate money directly to Ahmaud Arbrey's family by going to the GoFundMe link, which will be in the description below. Direct cash donations like these are extremely appreciated and do a lot more for communities than white tears and sharing articles on Facebook. As several states across America have reopened for business, including dine-in restaurants, in an effort to get people back to work and off the minuscule amounts of financial assistance provided to them by the government. As several cancellations are still in place, including but not limited to the Met Gala, Coachella, Wimbledon, the 2020 Summer Olympics, you can now go eat at your local Cracker Barrel. And now we will cut to our quarantine nightlife reporter, Pilar. Go ahead and tell us what's going on over there, Pilar.
Thank you, Gentry. This is Pilar reporting for Culture Desk. This week I'm asking, what have you been doing at home while getting drunk during quarantine? Do you miss going out and getting sloppy drunk at the dive bars? Do you miss doing things that you regret but can't quite remember? It's okay. You can tell me. It's me, Pilar. I definitely miss being a dive bar train wreck. This is why I went out and asked a group of bartenders, what have you been doing to fill that hole in your heart that is usually filled with drunken hookups, bar fights, vandalism, accidental drug use, and other random ilk of debauchery? Here's what they had to say. I was fairly disappointed with some of the responses, which sounded like drunk cooking chili and yelling at video games, or narrating for the cat, or I have a pole in my room. The dresser is too close to my pole. It's a mess. I was hoping for a few more salacious stories about hooking up with roommates, getting into fights with the drywall, desperate drunk dials, or really weird solo drug binges. But that's okay. We all know it's happening, even if no one will admit to it. Personally, every time I wake up hungover, I am at least reassured by knowing that no one saw me being a drunk asshole, except for perhaps my roommates. But trust me, they are sick of me. I have, however, been satisfying my darker drunken urges by talking to strangers on dating apps and starting shit on social media. But it just isn't the same. I don't know about you, but as soon as we're able to go back to the bars, I had a lot of drunken, extra, doing the most energy. So watch out. I'm coming for you.
I just remember walking down the street and like seeing cops with the masks, and they had already had their batons in their hands, like ready to beat people up. It was like very like, you know, like attack mode where you're like a mouse in a trap with this bunch of snakes. I was trying to pick my dog up. I had a bunch of hands on me, a bunch of people screaming at me. The next thing I know, I'm on the ground. The cops can treat people so bad, and we're expected to just take it or we're going to go to jail.
People hold on, try to find a way. Just stay strong. In a world that is lost on morals, I ask you to stay strong. It seems like everybody's so preoccupied with doing everything with the lie. What happened to the truth? Yeah. But honesty always has its way of peeking through, like a beautiful ray of sunlight on a cloudy day when it's raining. So people hold on.
For being here today. Are y'all with me today? Are y'all out here? I know it's hot. I know we just biked like crazy. But here's the thing. For the past month, I have been online coordinating with other tenants to organize a tenants council. So if you are renting from Sullivan Management Company, contact us. We are organizing. Neil Sullivan owns over 800 properties in Oakland. He bought them all during the last foreclosure crisis, and he is shaping the way that we rent in Oakland. We have demands, and we have gone public today. SMC Tenants Council is only one of many autonomous tenants councils that are being formed. So, no matter who you rent from, you can form a tenants council. And as a tenants council, you're just like a workers union. You can negotiate with your landlord and get demands like rent reduction, like rent cancellation for the duration of the crisis. But not just that. We're asking SMC for other things. We want renegotiation of leases so that when a master tenant leaves, they aren't doubling the rent, because that's what they do in Oakland. And that's how they keep us scared, and that's how they keep our housing substandard. So everyone out here, I know most of y'all probably rent. Most of y'all are going to be affected by this. Do not pay rent. The courts are closed. They can't evict you even if they wanted to. Don't pay. I don't care if you can afford to pay. Don't pay. Because if we all don't pay, they will cancel the rent, and that is money that you get to keep. So do not pay rent. Do not pay rent. Do not pay rent. Do not pay rent. Rent is theft, and it's always been today, and I hope to see you all in the streets in the future.
For more information on rent strike, you can visit the SMC Tenants Council at SMC_tenants, TANC Tank Tenant and Neighborhood Councils at bay.tanc, and the Bay Area Rentstrike.org. Now let's go ahead and cut to Gnome Chomsky's Garden Variety Disaster Capitalism with the secret word.
Hi Gentry, thank you so much for having me on the show again today. Today's word is reproductive futurism. The ideology of reproductive futurism privileges a eternally under siege, constantly threatened, perpetually deferred, by which I mean never quite realized, never quite achieved, hypothetical future, which has been created only because children, or more specifically a figural image of the child, has been protected, thus saving this imagined future. Although the child reproductive futurism purports to protect and serve, is hypothetical, more of a image or idea concept than an actual child. Different children are protected differently in the material reality of disaster capitalism. What is more tangible is the repercussions for what reproductive futurist ideology condemns as villains to this value system. For example, those who are not correctly or at all participating in heterosexual coupling that has become compulsory. As far as what to do when you hear the secret word, that's probably not going to happen unless you're reading out loud your bookshelf as you reorganize it from the negative turn in queer theory in the early 2000s. However, when you hear some kind of rhetoric masquerading as natural, biological, human nature being used as justification that reaffirms values that serve capitalism continuing to be rationalized as normal, shut that the down.
All right. Thank you for continuing to join us. Now we will have our Astrosagas forecast. So let's go ahead and cut to Astrosagas. Thank you, Astrosagas.
Hello, and welcome to your astrology weather forecast for May 12th through May 18th, 2020. And so this is going to be a very contemplative week. It is the seed right before the start of Gemini season. And Gemini, of course, is the revelation, the insight, the information, and the processing of relationship and how we're moving forward. And I think we're all coming to terms with the fact that reality is irreparably and irrevocably changed, and there will be no going back from this point. Because on May 13th, we have Mars entering Pisces. And so this is not the best placement for Mars, I'll tell you right up front. Mars is the energy of moving forward in the world, of asserting your will, of putting up boundaries. And in Pisces, that forward energy is kind of lost in the effervescent, spiritual, transcendent reality. And so we are looking more towards contemplation in that moment. It's kind of like thinking about shooting an arrow into space and having it hit fog. On May 13th, we have Venus going retrograde in Gemini. And so Venus in Gemini, of course, is about sharing the love of information, sharing the love of insight, and sharing your knowledge with people that you care about and communicating with them. And so when this goes retrograde, this is about pulling out of you those emotions that are hanging out on the deeper levels of experience that have not been expressed. May 14th, we have Jupiter retrograde in Capricorn. And so again, we have more retrograde energy. Jupiter in Capricorn is the expansion of leadership is of the destruction of leadership, the destruction of thinking of this one person as being in charge, and expanding that definition to realize that each one of us is leaders. Each one of us has agency. Each one of us has a responsibility to keep ourselves safe, to keep our loved ones safe, and to enact changes when we see fit. The moon this week is moving from Capricorn to Aries, and so that is a lot of agency and of moving forward in the world, figuring out how you're going to take back your power, letting go of this idea of powerlessness and realizing that you are being activated to step up, to take responsibility, and to figure out how you want to take care of yourself and take care of those that you love. As we look at the horoscopes for this week, there is a lot of emotional energy coming up. I know that Gemini is not usually associated with emotional stuff because we think about Gemini as being really like informational, but the truth is that the power of Gemini lies in sharing what you love and sharing your insight and your knowledge with those that you care about in order to elevate consciousness as a whole. And so that means transformation, and that means vulnerability in communication. So we're looking at a lot of vulnerability this week. Scorpio, you're gonna have a very direct reflection of the energy that you're putting out in the world. Aries, you really need to think about how you're going to reintegrate the experience of grief and loss in this time. And Sagittario, of course, because Jupiter is going retrograde, it's a very powerful transit for you. So check out your personal horoscopes on my Instagram page or on my website. And as always, con mucho, mucho, mucho amor.
Those were the top stories for the week beginning May 11th. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your continued support of News Television for All. As you know, at the end of every episode, we like to close things off with a music video. Today's music video comes to you from an Oakland band called Two Lazy Boys, and the song is called Smash a Cop in the Face with a Fucking Rock. Here we go.
Try to tell him as he walks up to me, smash a cop in the face with a fucking rock, that I'm a lover, not a fighter, you see. Smash a cop in the face with a fucking rock, hear him squeal as he falls down the hill. Smash a cop in the face with a fucking rock, everybody knows just how I feel. Smash a cop in the face with a fucking rock, smash a cop in the face with a fucking rock, smash a cop in the face with a fucking rock, smash a cop in the face with a fucking rock. Smash that cop, you do it.